Alright, so the world's been accused of not doing enough to help the Syrian refugees and actually doing nothing. Yeah, this is another episode of Viper Unscripted, and it's going to be a doozy. Hi everybody, Viper back, your favorite slithering shitlord, and I have some bad news for you. It turns out, all this time we thought we've been doing so much to help Syrian refugees, we haven't been doing a damn thing at all. In fact, we've turned our backs on them. Now, I'm looking here at an article published by the National Post. It's a newspaper up here in Canada, one of our main ones. And it says, a year after Aylan Kurdi's death, his father pleads for the horror in Syria to stop. Nobody is doing anything. Now, it's complemented with a lovely picture here of, quote, a paramilitary police officer carries the lifeless body of Aylan Kurdi, age 3, September 2015. Now, it says here in the article, the father of Aylan Kurdi, the young Syrian boy pictured washed up on a Turkish beach who became a symbol of the refugee crisis, has accused the world of turning its back on Syria as people continue to die. On the eve of the one-year anniversary of his son's death, Abdullah Kurdi pleaded with the international community to act to stop the bloodshed in his country, saying the attention paid to his family's misfortune had saved nothing. Quote, the politicians said after the deaths in my family, never again. End quote, Mr. Kurdi, 41, said yesterday. Quote, everyone claimed they wanted to do something because of the photo that touched them so much, but what is happening now? People are still dying and nobody is doing anything about it. End quote. In September last year, Kurdi's wife, Rehab Aylan, 3, and his oldest son, Galip, 5, drowned after their boat took on water and capsized in the Mediterranean as the family tried to reach Europe. Wearing a red t-shirt and denim shorts as he lay face down in the sand, the shocking image of Aylan drew the world's attention to the deadly journey made by thousands of migrants. Migrants. It's a funny term they would use that word because personally I thought we were dealing with the Syrian refugee crisis, and there is quite a difference to be made, quite a distinction to be made between what constitutes a migrant and what constitutes a refugee. Now, I suppose you can do the whole, not all hot tubs are jacuzzis, but jacuzzis are hot tubs thing here. But in this case, the world has taken a very different view to that. The term refugee has come to, and always has, I suppose, legitimately meant somebody fleeing for their life. Somebody fleeing an area because it would be too dangerous for them to stay. They have been forced out of their homes. They've been forced out of their country. This is not something that people choose to do so much as they are put under duress and forced to do. Whereas a migrant, and the vast majority of people who have come to the EU in the last couple of years have been economic migrants. All right. Migrants are people who are simply making a journey somewhere for their own, personal goals, their own personal ends. And in many cases, this has been to find either low-end employment to send money back to their home country, or to just set up a life in a welfare state, somewhere where they know they'll be better provided for than in the country of origin. Now, what's his name here? I want to make sure you guys name right. Mr. Kurdi. I just had it. Abdullah Kurdi, that's it. I didn't want to get that wrong. He says that people are turning their backs on Syria, that nobody's doing anything about it. And personally, coming from Canada, where we pledged to take in 20,000 Syrian refugees in a very short period of time after the conclusion of our elections late last year, alright, I resent the fact that somebody is sitting here saying, oh, well, no one's doing anything about it. Fine. Mr. Kurdi, would you prefer we sent back 20,000 people back to Syria? Doing nothing about it. I understand. Well, I couldn't possibly understand, but I can seek to understand the kind of suffering you must be going through and the concern you have for your country. All right? But to say that nobody's doing anything about it is, well, categorically false. It's provably incorrect. But when we talk about turning our backs on something, I think it has a very particular connotation. to turn your back on something, typically that means that you would have an onus of it. You would have some reason to take responsibility for that thing or that person, that country, whatever it is you've now turned your back on. It's a sign of disrespect, right? You've turned away from something that you really should have helped out more with. Well, if we're going to talk about turning our backs on something, especially the Syrian crisis right now, the civil war, from the Pew Report, quote, as a result, about 4 in 10 asylum seekers in Europe 2015, 42%, were young men ages 18 to 34. This was also true for most leading origin countries. 39% of those from Syria were young men, as were 38% of those from Afghanistan and 47% of those from Iraq. Young adult males made up larger shares of asylum seekers from some origin countries. For example, roughly 3/4 of asylum seekers from Gambia, 80%, Pakistan, 76%, and Bangladesh, 76%, were young adult men in 2015. Now, I can't speak to the medical soundness of any of these 18 to 34-year-old men fleeing from Syria. 39% of asylum seekers from Syria. But I can say that in fair surety, that plenty of them were more than capable of taking up arms and defending their country. Let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. Way on back, one of the things that actually caused Canada to confederate was a series of attacks by kind of rebel bands out of the United States called the Fenians. These are the Fenian raids. All right. Do you know what happened when armed Americans started coming over the border into Canada and basically raping and pillaging, trying to, create the whole concept of the whole manifest destiny thing? Yeah, we didn't take this one lying down. Militias and formal regiments were formed, and people stood up to fight back against an exterior force to defend their country. All right, right now, ISIS is destroying your country. Whether or not they're an internal or an external threat, ISIS is destroying your country. I think it would be appropriate to ask some of these 18 to 34-year-old men to consider maybe, just maybe, taking up arms to defend their homes. Was the previous government under Assad a great thing? Who knows? But I can tell you this, it's a hell of a lot better to have, in this case, I would say dictatorial, manageable chaos, or dictatorial stability, than it is to have this militant chaos ripping throughout your country. All right, if you want to do something about it, look to the people who have left your country, who have literally turned their backs on Syria, and ask them to help. Ask them to come back and fight for the freedom and the security of your country. Because if you're not willing to do that, how the hell can you be so, I would say, ignorant as to look to the rest of the world and say that we all have to do something when your own citizens don't have to do it? If you're not willing to fight for something and your own people aren't willing to fight for something, and they're just going to run to a hope, to a life in Europe where we don't have civil war, I should say where they don't have civil war, where they have a very, very expanded welfare state, all right, and where they can get jobs easier than most others because they're willing to work for less. And if they're unattached men, they don't have to support a family there. You can pack 6 individuals into one house, split the rent among 6 working individuals, and undercut anyone else in that neighborhood. It's almost like reverse gentrification. So, Mr. Abdullah Kurdi, with no great disrespect meant to you, sir, if you would like to say that the world is turning its back on Syria, you can take that opinion, turn it sideways, and shove it quickly where the sun doesn't shine. This has been another episode of Viper Unscripted. Have a good one. Oh, and quickly before I forget, to my wonderful patron, Wild Tanuki, yes, you have the dubious honor of being first and only. I'd like to thank you very much for your continued support. To everyone else who is not a patron and just kind of casually watching this video, I would recommend liking it, or not liking it, you can downvote it as well. Leave a comment, and if you've really enjoyed this, consider subscribing. If you have, the means to do so and you would like to support what I do in creating my videos, you can check out my Patreon. You get access to Patreon-only videos. You can take part in Google live streams, patron-only World of Tanks Platoon hangouts, and a ton of other options, including commissioning topics for new videos. In any case, you can find me at www.patreon.com/JTViper. Thank you all for watching.